Let's return to This Week in America. Here's your host, Ric Bratton.
Welcome back, everybody, coast to coast. This Week in America. In the international bestseller, Dare to be a Revolutionary Leader. People are the solution. Change your leadership style. Charley Swords, an expert in working with leadership and management teams, drives home the point that there is no one-size-fits-all leadership style. Her book is a fresh perspective on leadership, putting people at the heart and soul of modern leadership, enabling them to engage in some real self-reflection, to go back to their core values and to re-engage with them in terms of their lives and their way of leading. Throughout Charley's extensive career, for over 30 years, she's worked with organizations in 27 countries, from boards of directors and C-suite executives, as well as those currently in who aspire to step into leadership roles. Dare to be a Revolutionary Leader provides you with a detailed framework to assess and develop your own leadership style. And author Charley Swords joins us on This Week America via Skype from Ireland. Charley, welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, Rick. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm delighted to be here.
I have been looking forward to this conversation. Your book is really a unique approach to leadership, and I love the content of the book and can't wait to have this conversation. And I'll start by asking about, where did this concept come from to write the book, Dare to be a Revolutionary Leader?
Well, I first experienced the kind of the perceived difference between being a manager and a leader when I was an employee, and then when I became a consultant and worked overseas, what I realized and what I observed is that regardless of what country or continent I was in, or the creed or the culture that I was working in, there were similarities in the whole leadership approach, and everybody was referring to and applying the traditional leadership models. But what I noticed, and because I'm very much people-led, is that people were very much at the end of the discussion about strategy and about concepts and about moving a business forward. And so I really do truly believe that we now need, particularly post-pandemic, but even before that, I believe we need a modern approach to leadership, where leadership is not about power over people, but it's about power with, or the empowerment of people, and certainly of the employees. And that really is why I wrote the book. I believe beyond a shadow of a doubt, based on all of my experience, that people really do need to be seen, heard, and valued in an organization by their leaders. And it's just not very evident in a consistent manner. And, you know, all leaders, they achieve their results through their people, but the people are not the actual core of the decision-making process. So that is why I wrote the book. And I really felt, because the experiences were similar, I felt that there's a common thread here, and I wanted to put this out there internationally. And I wanted to basically put the focus back on people. I know a lot of leaders, it's very much the bottom line. It's very much the next technological development. It's very much about growth and targets. But none of this will be successful without the people to implement and to apply. And so I think they need to be first up.
You know, you talk about it's employees, not shareholders or customers, who are at the center of every business. And I love that concept. That's very basic, but sometimes overlooked. Everybody is focused on the bottom line, focused on taking care of shareholders and customers, and they forget about the employees, the core of the business. Our guest on the program today is Charley Swords, and I'll be giving you the spelling and her website as we go through the program. On our website as well, thisweekinamerica.us. Charley is C-H-A-R-L-E-Y, Swords, S-W-O-R-D-S. Her website, very simple, hername.com, charleyswords.com. Book available at Amazon, pageturner.us, all of the usual places, and we'll have that information again on our website. And I'll repeat that as we go through the conversation. The book is Dare to be a Revolutionary Leader. Why did you structure the book the way that you did? It's very powerful the way you have it organized. You lead us through this process. How did you come up with a structure for the book?
Well, the book is all about people naturally. And for me, then, I had all of the content, I had the format, I knew what I wanted to put into it, but the structure it just kept coming at me, and I really had to think about it. And it came back to the very simple belief of mine, which is that you cannot lead other people effectively without first being able to lead yourself. And therefore, I have structured the book in three parts. The first part, and almost half the book, is about mastering yourself. It's about mastering your self-leadership. It's about understanding the essence of who you are, understanding your core values and your qualities, and reassessing your qualities. So there are a lot of very insightful self-assessment exercises in that part of the book, to guide people through their self-reflection and to kind of realign themselves in terms of the leader, the one they were a few years ago, or for those people who want to move into leadership roles, it's about making sure that they have this self-confidence and that feel they have the self-esteem and the self-worth to do that. The second part of the book then is, once you've mastered your self-leadership, you're able to then lead your people effectively. So the second part is your employees, and it's about how to apply all of those skills. It's about how to lead your employees, how well you need to know them, and you really do need to know and to understand them and any issues they may be feeling. You need to learn how to delegate, how to provide really constructive feedback in a very good way. I talk about the leadership model in terms of how to really empower your people. And the third part of the book then, the final part, is your results. So if you master your self-leadership, if you lead your people very effectively, you will more than achieve your results. The bottom line will not be in question. The money will flow. And that, for me, it's almost symbolic that the financials and the strategy and the results are at that stage. They're last. People are first.
Yes, you lead us all through that process. You mentioned in the beginning how important it is to understand yourself. You talk about developing a brand new mental image of yourself. Why is that so important? We start with who we are. I mean, that's the core. That seems obvious, but it's really not until we think it through. Why is that so important?
It's hugely important because as the world has evolved in the world of business, truthfully, every leader out there will know that the pressure to perform and to produce results is significant. And we're so busy doing and following and chasing and all of this. We're growing the business at a great rate. And it's almost like the employees, we're assuming they're going to do what we're asking them to do, or in some cases what they're being told to do. But the whole communication side has kind of imploded in leadership today. And so the thinking is that leaders believe that because they have communicated to others, that the others understand. That's not the case. The benefit, the absolute truth of all communication is determined by the leader, by the communicator. And it's really relevant now for people and for leaders at all levels to step back and to really ask themselves, what kind of leader am I? What kind of legacy am I leaving as a leader? Am I the kind of leader people want to work with, or do I lead through fear? And given the pandemic and in the post-pandemic era, I've spoken with many leaders who are actually questioning whether or not they should stay in their leadership position. They don't believe, with all of the change that's coming at such a pace, that they are equipped to do this. Now, my answer to that would be, you are, but just take breath, take stock, step back and take a look at yourself. Take a deep breath and go back into the self-reflection. Who am I? What is driving my decisions? What is driving my behavior towards my employees, etc.? And by doing that, you will actually identify some of the paradigms that are causing a lot of self-doubt, There's quite a significant amount of imposter syndrome out there. And it's to get to the cause of all of this. Why do they believe they can't do when they have been producing the results? So it's really important to go back and understand who we are, because the core values of every individual really is the essence of who they are, and that will determine their thoughts, feelings, and their actions, stroke behaviors. Now, a lot of organizations worldwide have stated corporate values. And the critical thing here for all leaders is that their personal core values are in alignment with the stated core values of the organization. Now, they may be on paper. The issue with the corporate values in organizations is whether or not they are actually living values and are embodied by the employees. And organizations have often said to me, the boards, the directors, and the executive teams, oh, yes, the values are all living and fully embedded. Yet employee engagement is at an all-time low and employee satisfaction is at an all-time low. And so therefore, straight away, you have that gap.
Yes.
So if the values were embodied, the employee engagement would be very high, employee satisfaction, customer satisfaction, etc. So we need to bring an alignment in between all of these elements of a business and of a culture, and people are at the heart of the culture.
Charley Swords is our guest on the program, CharleySwords. Her website, her name, charleyswords.com, coming to us from Ireland via Skype on This Week in America. She is the author of the book, Dare to be a Revolutionary Leader. People are the solution. Change your leadership style. Let's talk about that title. What is the meaning of the title, Be a Revolutionary Leader?
Well, it's a very it's almost a provocative title,
yes.
Rick. The word dare it's about almost like I dare you to do this, and what I'm saying is I'm really daring you to have the courage to think differently as a leader, to actually stand up and to be that tall poppy in the poppy field, and to do what is right by your employees. Not to do the right thing always because this is the way we've always done it. We've learned a lot from the traditional models, leadership models, but really the time is now for modern leadership. So it really is a challenge to step up, to think differently, to self-reflect, and to realize and to believe without any concern that people are the solution to all problems. And to all situations that arise in any business.
Somebody listening here in the United States thinking, I love the ideas, but there has to be some differences between what Charley faces in Ireland, the 27 countries that she's worked in, from Albania to Vietnam, and here in the United States. Talk about the universality of this. Does this apply to all countries, to the United States, for example?
I believe so. I've worked with a lot of Americans over the years. I've worked with some American companies, but I've also worked, but not only in Europe. I've worked in many continents. So this book is not written from an Irish perspective, and it's not written from a European perspective. It's written from a humanity perspective, based on what I have seen in terms of the practices of leaders and employees in many organizations, in many countries, many cultures, and also based on the practices of various consultants from the greater world as well. It applies absolutely everywhere because, in essence, what we're talking about is how we treat people. Do we see them? Do we see our employees? Do we recognize their existence and their power and the value they bring to the organization? Do we hear them, not in terms of I hear them speaking, but do we actively listen to really understand what they're saying? Because, when you look at it from a leader's perspective, the majority of their employees are the customer-facing people in the organization, and their employees are the voice of the customer. So if you truly want to know what your customer thinks, you really have to be able to engage with and to speak with your employees and ask them to explain to you how everything is being understood by the customer. And all employees need to be engaged. There are significant issues with employee engagement globally. And a lot of people, when I discuss it with them, they say, well, the employee satisfaction survey says it's 70% or whatever. But employee engagement is way more than satisfaction, and satisfaction taken at a point in time when somebody could be having a good day or a not so good day. Engagement is about the emotional connection your people have with an organization, and that is generally determined by the leader and by the culture of that organization. And therefore, this book is all about humanity. It's not about, well, it will be different in America, or it will be different in Canada, or it will be different in Ireland. I think what we found generally through the pandemic is that everybody was impacted almost simultaneously. And it wasn't, well, it happened over there, so it doesn't apply here. I've done quite a lot of presentations and discussions with American organizations, and it's the same issue. It's how do we, as leaders, delegate more? How do we learn to trust our employees more? What are the better qualities that we need to focus on? So rather than being more of a dictator, we need to have more empathy. We certainly need to apply more humility. We need to trust, and we need to trust our employees to do their job. Micromanaging is absolutely has no place in modern leadership. So it is all about people, and people are in essence the same the world over. And they want to be seen, heard, and valued, and they want it to be treated with respect and dignity. And that's the key underlying message in my book.
Charley Swords is our guest on the program, CharleySwords. Her website, very simple, hername.com, charleyswords.com. Book available wherever books are sold, of course, Amazon, pageturner.us, all of those regular places. And we'll mention those again in the program, and you'll find them on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. The book is Dare to be a Revolutionary Leader. People are the solution. Change your leadership style. Why is self-leadership so important, do you think?
I think, excuse me, it's very hard for a leader to be impactful if they are looking outward at their employees, and if they apply almost the blame game in terms of, well, I've told everybody what to do, or they know what their job description is. This is something I hear a lot of the time. And really what that is saying is, I've given the instructions, or I've given the direction, therefore they need to know. The missing link here is that there is no understanding as to whether or not the people you're communicating with actually have understood your message or your way of communicating, or know what you want of them. And that comes back to the source of the provider of the message or the direction. And therefore, self-leadership is back to understanding as a leader who we are, what our value to the organization is, and what my responsibility as a leader is. And in an awful lot of the work I do in corporations and with individuals, there's a huge discussion around how much time do you spend developing your people and listening to your people. And this is almost like an alien concept for a lot of people. It's almost like, well, they have their job description, they know what to do, and they need to do it. And it means we have to go back and we have to become more humble ourselves in order to bring humility into our way of leading. And we have to go back and really ask ourselves, do we trust ourselves? Do we doubt ourselves? Do we believe we suffer from imposter syndrome? And if we have any of those doubts, and believe me, there's a lot of self-doubt at senior level, then we've got to address that. We have to do the inner work. If we don't do the inner work on an individual level, the outer work will suffer. And as a leader, that means how we lead our people and our organizations will suffer greatly. So it really is time to look at ourselves to look at the value we place on ourselves. It's very much about self-worth, knowing the difference between our self-worth, our self-esteem, our self-confidence, and how they are all interrelated, but they're not the same. And if we have that understanding as a leader, we will bring that understanding to our observation and our support of the people we lead, to help them be better versions of themselves, to help them develop their self-leadership, and to be the very best that they can be.
Time is going by so quickly. Our guest via Skype from Ireland is Charley Swords. She is the author of the book Dare to Be a Revolutionary Leader and international bestseller. The book is available wherever books are sold. A couple of minutes left in the program. I want to talk about two concepts that are so important that you address in the book. The one is communication, and you talk that communication right in shorter sentences. Sometimes leaders in that position think they have to overwhelm you with their vernacular, their knowledge, and you're saying just keep it short and simple and easy to understand.
Absolutely. And you know, in this very technical world that we live in, and I'm not very techie, I have to say, there's an awful lot of technical jargon. There's more and more technical apps and systems being introduced. And when we look at the employees, there is a tendency to assume that because you've gotten the manual with all the acronyms in it, that you'll understand how everything works. That's not really the case, certainly not for my gender and my generation, should I say. But also we have diversity among the employees as well. So the younger generations are more tech savvy, but the leader has to be able to communicate consistently and clearly to every generation of employee on their team. And so we need to use simple language. We need to be able to communicate in a way that the receiver of the message understands exactly what they're being asked to do, will understand what is being communicated to them, and shorter sentences make it possible for them to actually understand. A long, rambling sentence with a lot of components and interrelated elements in it can and has caused confusion. So keep it short and simple, keep it relevant, and always at the end of the communications, you know, have some of your employees paraphrase back to you to make sure that you know for sure they have understood exactly what you've asked them to do or what you have communicated to them. The difficulty up to now is that when we communicate, we tend to assume everybody understands because we have written it probably or spoken it from our perspective as a communicator, rather than from the perspective of the receiver, the people who are going to receive the message. And that's one of the critical things I work on in my communications training. Everything that we communicate, be it in the spoken word, in the written word, it has got to be communicated with the audience in mind at all times. And we've got to keep the technical jargon out of it.
Yes.
It has, the same applies for customers. They don't understand all the technical jargon. And so it has to be explained to, everything has to be explained to them in a way they understand.
Another key area I'm going to slip in here as we are rapidly running out of time, though, is the art of delegation. And I think so often people almost think of that as a weakness if I need to delegate, or a sign that it's out of my control once I delegate. Talk about the art of delegation.
This is really huge. And, you know, I often in my training, I ask my clients, well, you know, can you tell me, what does delegation mean to you? And some of them, a lot of them have come back and said, it means getting somebody to do something for you. And that's what it absolutely is not. That's just using someone. But delegation, the art of delegation is where you delegate two things. You delegate responsibility for a task to somebody else. And the reason you're delegating is twofold. You're trying to determine whether or not they have the natural skills or the capabilities to actually do something extra or something different. So it's part of the development of your staff. It will help you also to move into other areas. But the most important thing, so apart from delegating responsibility, the absolute critical thing you must delegate is your authority to that person. So delegation is usually down to a person at a junior level from the leader. And the leader not only delegates responsibility, but you have to give them the authority to go and maybe speak to other people at different levels, or to review certain documents, etc., etc. The authority, when you don't delegate your authority, you're not delegating at all. Now, it's a strong leader who will delegate effectively. And I like what you've asked, Rick, when you say about it's seen as a weakness. The leaders who consider delegation a weakness are those who have a tendency to micromanage. They're afraid of losing control. They're afraid of losing their power. And they're afraid of the possibility that their staff will know more than them. But as many great leaders in the world have said, the sign of a great leader is one who will employ those people who know way more than they do. The role of the leader is not to know everything about everything, but it is to be able to engage people and to develop them to be the very best that they can be. And the role and responsibility of a leader is to develop others. And delegation is very much key to that. So it's not a weakness, it's a strength. But remember, you delegate responsibility for doing something, but you must also, in tandem, delegate the authority to do it.
Covered so much ground and so much more that we can cover, but it's all covered for you in Charley's book. The book is Dare to be a Revolutionary Leader. People are the solutions. Change your leadership style. Book available wherever books are sold. Charley Swords is the name of our guest, the author of the book. Charley, Charley, Swords, Swords. Our website is charleyswords.com. Book available at Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, PageTurner.us, all of the usual places. All of this information on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Charley, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining us via satellite, via Skype from over in Ireland. A pleasure to have you on the program. So much more we could talk about. Hopefully we can do this again. Thank you for being with us on the program.
Thank you very much, Rick. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Once again, the book is Dare to be a Revolutionary Leader. The author is Charley Swords. All of the information on our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and Charley's website, charleyswords.com. We're back on today's program right after these messages.
You're listening to This Week in America with Ric Bratton. More after this.